Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes podcast. Today we're here with Ty Irving, who is the founder and CEO of Big Skylines. How are you?
Doing fantastic, Garrett.
I love the name.
Thank you.
Big Skylines. What do you guys do? What's the story?
We are a made-to-order custom sock company. So we basically make socks for marathons, half marathons, 10Ks, 5Ks, booster clubs, Rotary clubs, anybody, small businesses that are doing promotions, silicone slope socks. That's what we do.
Yeah, very cool. And to your credit, tenacity of an entrepreneur, I think you pinged like help at Silicon Slopes or contact us.
Hello.
And offered to sell us socks.
I did.
And I think that would be sweet. We don't have two nickels to rub together. No, thank you. But then you showed up with a box.
Yep.
And tried them on immediately, and they're very, very comfortable. There's like padding in the right spots. Great socks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So kudos to you. And then I thought, this is a great story, great entrepreneur. Let's tell it. So what made you get into this industry and this company and specifically?
So it goes way back to 2014. I was a sophomore in college. I was going to Carroll College up in Helena, Montana. Go Saints. And I was a big sock guy. I don't know if you guys have heard of Strideline socks, but they originally started as like a custom crew sock company for a LAX lacrosse team in Seattle. Well, they created a company that became known as Strideline Socks, and they did the first city skyline socks ever made, and it was the Seattle skyline with the Space Needle and everything. Well, they quickly expanded to all the biggest cities, LA, Miami, New York, you name it. And in 2014, I was wearing a pair of their socks while I was in Montana. And Joe, one of my best friends and roommates, he was from Seattle. He was a big sock guy as well. And we had this idea. We're in the Big Sky State, 406, Montana. Why aren't we doing Skyline socks for Montana? Because small market, not being catered to at all by the big cities. And so the idea of Big Skylines was born. But at that point, we hadn't even declared a major. We had never taken a business class, didn't know anything about production or manufacturing. So we sat on the idea till 2016, our senior year, and there was a new entrepreneurship program at Carroll that was launching. It was a 1-credit class, 1 night a week, 7 p.m. And the third class, we had an entrepreneur in residence that would come in every day or every Wednesday. His name's John McCarville. He's an alumni of Carroll back in the 70s. And at the time, he was CEO of Crocs. So bunch of manufacturing capabilities, had a lot of connections in textile industry. And he was basically like one of the sharks. And so we all had pitch offs to him. There were some really good ideas. He loved the sock idea the best. So he gave us $5,000 in seed money to start this. And he also, we had the idea, had no idea how to bring socks to life. And no manufacturers would work with us because we were nobodies. Our minimum, we couldn't even hit the minimum order of 100 pairs. We didn't know who to sell to, how to sell them. And so he hooked us up, did us a favor. CDG Brands, which is down in North Carolina, they were the first people we worked with. And we got our first order of Helena high top. So it was the Helena Skyline in Carroll College colors, and then 2 of the biggest high schools in Helena. We had our first order of 400 pairs, had a launch party at 406, which is basically like a lifestyle clothing brand in downtown Helena. We launched, sold a bunch of pairs of socks for $20 a pop, had like more money in our checking accounts than we'd ever had before in college. And then just went into growth mode, started going to Bozeman, Missoula, all the biggest cities. And then we launched a 406 line. And then we launched a ski line of wool socks. And we were just like going for it. So yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you didn't know what you're doing. And
it's part of entrepreneurship. First step's the hardest, right?
You had a pitch.
Yep.
Had a shark, and then jumped into the deep end.
Absolutely.
So manufacturing of socks in 2016 to 2022, there's a few curveballs thrown in there,
yep.
Right? But we'll talk about the curveballs that everyone's aware of. But in the early days, you're going with your school colors, Montana, things that are close. When did you start to learn about the nuances of margins and manufacturing and scaling? And
very quickly. So I'll tell you, Big Skylines, we started off hot, 2016, 2017. And then it kind of got to the point where it was like, are we going to go all in on the sock game? Or are we going to go get real jobs? You know, in corporate America. Joe decided, my partner, that he was going to move to Portland, and he got a job with Nike. The nice thing about starting the sock company is now we had sales experience. We had a nice resume story for people that interviewed us. So Joe took the corporate route. He worked for Nike, still works for him. And he left the company, so it was just me. So I was doing sales. I'm a salesman at heart. I love selling, but I didn't know all the operations stuff behind the business. And I was just a one-man team, didn't really know what I was doing. So then I moved to Seattle in 2018, got a medical device sales job, and was kind of doing the socks. I'd say about like 5 hours a week, maybe, selling to whoever, people buying off our website. And then throughout the course of the last 5 years, it's morphed into, okay, I have all this sales knowledge now. Got a great sales background. I understand sales processes, funneling, prospecting, all that stuff that I had no idea before. And so finally, in January of this year, I decided, look, here's my output with 4 or 5 hours a week. If I go 40 hours a week, if I 10X my output, why can't I 10X my input? And so that's exactly what I've done.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And you've got still a small team. So
Yep.
division of duties, you're all wearing a lot of hats.
Yep.
Somebody obviously decided on like the structure and format. I don't know if that's the right word, of the sock. Again, there's padding, and it's a great fit. Who kind of decides on design? Who kind of designs on?
So that was me. I'm a sock snob. So I started off wearing Strideline socks, and then obviously was a big Stance fan. And I, you go wear a cheap thin cotton sock from Target or something in a 12-pack, and you put it on, it doesn't fit very well. Then you put these on, they're nice and form-fitting, which I just got used to. And then I started looking at other socks, other athletic socks, running socks, and I saw that they were adding mesh on top for breathability. Because, I was basically like the prototype tester. So I'd wear them if my feet would get sweaty. I'd ask the manufacturer, "Hey, can you higher the polyester, lower the nylon, or whatever it may be? Add mesh, add double padding on the heels for durability, all that fun stuff. We want these socks to last. So especially because we charge a premium price for them, so it has to be a premium product. So yeah, I was the sock snob who added all the details and bells and whistles.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know a lot about an actual sock, and I assume it's not like showing up to the woolen mill and with a couple of greasy napkins drawings.
No.
How does the communication go back and forth to get this?
It's pretty simple. So once I have the sock that I want, which is this one, the manufacturer knows exactly what I'm expecting. So they make the same sock. So if I did a white silicone slope sock with blue accents, it would be the exact same sock, just different colors. So the ratio of materials that they use, the exact same on every sock run. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned some of your business models, big events, marathons, and those types of things. How do you like onboard your customers and make sure that the quality control is good?
So because I run everything, I oversee everything that comes in and everything that goes out. So when the socks show up on my door, once the order's done, I try to be the Amazon Prime of socks. If they want samples, like let's say I do outreach in an email sequence and they say, "Hey, we're interested, we want samples." I have sample pairs that I send out basically the same day. So they show up in 2 to 3 days max. They test out the samples. I get them a design within 24 hours. And then once they place the order comes in, I check all the socks, make sure they're good, send them out, then follow up with the customer as soon as they get them. And these people that I sell to, mostly running events, they know their socks really well. So they know a good sock when they see it. And so that's what the sampling phase is for. But once they see the samples, it's usually a sell.
Okay.
Because when someone reaches out for custom socks or promotional socks, they're usually cheap ones.
Yeah.
And so they expect them to be $2-3 a pair. So when I say, they're $10, then they're like, okay, well, they better be worth $10. And then that's when the samples back up the claims.
Yeah.
Yep.
You've got that process down.
Yep.
Sales process. But there's a lot of things that you probably weren't comfortable with, right? Like negotiations with the manufacturers. And you mentioned earlier, North Carolina is where you do a big batch of those.
Yep.
So when they come back, they've probably got all sorts of scales of like, if you order this many, it's this price.
Yep.
Were you comfortable in that world?
No, absolutely not. But I had John McCarville as a mentor. And the guy that was running the plant, CDG Brands guy, he was good friends with John. So he took it easy on me to start. He wasn't a hard baller whatsoever. But now it's like I've been in the business long enough. We're not working with that plant anymore. And so it's all about business. But they're more inclined to give me rush orders and give me faster, better service if I order more socks. It's all about volume for these manufacturers. So I'm a wholesaler, so I should be bringing in wholesale orders, big orders, thousands of pairs a month. That's what they want. And if you give it to them, they're your best friend. So
very cool.
Yeah.
So you identified in the early days some key channels.
Yep.
And then I assume your brain's constantly.
Well, actually, this running channel, I just got on it in January.
Okay.
Before that, last year was CrossFit gyms, and CrossFit gyms were great, but it's 100 pair minimum order. That's it can't go lower than that. It's minimum order quantity. And I was going to all CrossFit gyms because CrossFit gyms are big on socks. They love their socks. They're big on swag, and they like this athletic sock that I could provide them. So I was going after CrossFit gyms. The problem with that is these CrossFit gyms are franchises of the bigger CrossFit brand, and so they're basically small business owners. And I found, they could do the 100 pair minimum order, most gyms, because they have 300 members, but it was a resale, so they'd buy the socks for 10, sell them for 15 to 20. But from a business standpoint, the churn rate on that is much slower. I want reorders quickly, and so I would be selling them 100 pairs, and then it would take them 12 months to sell them. So I'm getting one order from each gym a year. That's not enough. And it's a lot harder to get a small business owner, as the gym owner, to cut me a check for $1,000+, especially the first time going into business with them, than it is for, say, a title sponsor of a marathon who has the money to blow and they already have a merch budget and they're ordering 500 pairs, 1,000 pairs for me for the weekend, for a Saturday. And it's a specific colorway, a specific date for the race. And then once that race is over, the socks are gone. Now it's on to the next race. So it's a lot easier to get someone to write me a check when it's not their money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is just strategic thinking.
It is.
And you've identified that vertical that works very well. And I'm sure you've got a few targeted marathons, Boston, New York.
Boston, New York, Portland. I mean, those are the big dogs. So got to work my way up. I think the biggest marathon so far is the Lincoln Marathon in Nebraska that I did. They have over 10,000 runners. So
very cool.
That's a vein. And then also the next vertical is right up you guys' alley, Silicon Slopes, tech companies. You were wearing, I think when I first brought you a pair of socks, you were wearing some ClickUp socks.
Yep.
So same thing, that's kind of my target market, going after companies like that provide swag to new employees. I mean, when I worked at Podium, we would get like 2 or 3 tokens a month to go get swag on the swag store. But not a lot of companies offer socks. And if they do, they're not great socks that you'd like wearing.
So I assume it gets a little bit fatiguing wearing all of these hats, right? Your sales and...
I mean, yeah.
At what point do you want to kind of build the team and get a few other folks?
I think the most important part right now, especially when you're ramping the company, is sales. So bringing on sales reps is my biggest, basically, mission right now. I just need people selling. We can worry about marketing. We can worry about back-end stuff later. We just need to get socks on people's feet as fast as possible, because the more socks you put out, the more money's coming in, and then obviously money builds the business. So
yeah. As I mentioned, the socks are high quality.
Thank you.
Which means they're going to last longer, right?
Right.
And you're fine with that.
I'm totally fine with that. I want them to last longer. It's a walking billboard, a foot billboard for people. So if they're rocking the socks with shorts on, you can see them. I don't want them to get holes in them. I want people to talk about them for a long time. But then again, those custom runs for specific events, that's why it's important, because you have, let's say, a Lincoln Marathon sock in 2022 race colors. They can't use it again next year. So it's a use it or lose it kind of deal. And now we have all these socks from 2022 come back in 2023. So then you'll have a drawer full of a bunch of awesome socks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Good memories.
Great memories.
Good nostalgia. And I've got some really nice socks. They're probably Stance that are 10 years old from some investor conference.
Yeah.
You have a little,
it's like those T-shirts.
Flashback.
Yeah,
it's
the little T-shirts or the hats that you get from concerts or whatever you went to.
Yeah. It's like fun, positive endorphins.
It is.
Unless, you came in last at the marathon or whatever. But,
at least you're finishing the marathon. I wouldn't even be running it. So
that is kudos to them. And you've got these startup companies that love them some swag.
Yep. Swag.
These big tech conferences as well. As ideas run through your mind that that you've targeted that would work, how far down the path do you get of like this could work? Like what if I could sell to the U.S. Navy, right? Or
get a government contract for socks. That'd be fantastic.
Because you've got to allocate time.
Yeah.
And mentally, and then like, well, if I did get it, then how do you on a small team kind of cycle through these ideas, and then like, what's the procedures of like, that's a good idea, but we're gonna have to wait.
Right now, I'm just in growth mode, so I think like ideas are great, but I mean, you have to take actual action, right? These intangible ideas and thoughts are just going to stay dreams and thoughts until you actually go for it. And so I can't really worry about tomorrow. I have to worry about what needs to get done today and take actionable steps to make that happen today. So to answer your question, I'm thinking big, but like I'm taking small steps to get there. So yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people are in your boat with growing these small companies. So there's obviously been supply chain issues across nearly every industry. I assume it's affecting you. And what are some of those negative effects, and how are you mitigating?
So luckily, nylon, polyester, and spandex are not in any sort of deficit. They're readily available. It's shipping costs. It's the logistics. Getting the socks here. They're coming from China. International shipping's outrageous right now. And if they're coming from the U.S., they're more expensive anyways to get them made. So the price ends up about being the same. But yeah, I've noticed a 50% increase in shipping costs in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
And that's been tough, but the margins are still there. So yeah, it's eaten into them a little bit, but it's nothing that would like upend a business. So,
yeah.
Yep.
And do you get any indications from your shippers that it will end in 3 months, 6 months?
No.
Never?
They just say shipping's expensive. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
Send them my way.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Very cool. All right. Well, again, the tenacity of you showing up after you said no. Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And, if there's companies out there, organizations that would like some high quality socks, what's the best way to get in contact?
So bigskylines.com, the website, we used to sell retail. Now it's just wholesale. So it's a pretty standard landing page website. My info's on there. Hit me up on Instagram, Big Skylines. Slide in my DMs. We'll make you socks.
Very cool.
Yep.
Thank you, Ty. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Garrett. Appreciate it.